everybody. Welcome to Aviation for Girls Engage E-Learning. And we're talking all about drones today. We have an amazing specialist with us tonight and a featured specialist. And Sally, do you want to say hello and ask our first question?
Hello, how are you guys? Thanks so much for joining us tonight or this afternoon, wherever you are. And I want to ask you guys a question. I'm personally so curious. Have you flown a drone before?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I just launched that. Ooh, it's 50-50 so far, Sally.
Am I allowed to vote in this one?
Yeah, did it launch for you? Go for it.
I got one. Oh no, it says host and panelists can't vote. Okay, I'm just going to need to know what you guys all said.
We have 40% that have said yes, they have, and 60% have not yet. So pretty split, pretty split. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to share the results for you so everybody can see. And while we're sharing, we'll go over our customs. Just remember that we respect everyone. We are recording so that we can share this on YouTube for people that are not in the time zone. Please use the Q&A, ask questions. You can ask questions to me, Sally. You can even send us a question in the chat. Be thoughtful about your questions. Raise your hand if you'd like to talk. We can always have you speak when you raise your hand. And don't forget, use your reactions. Can we see some reactions right now? I saw one a second ago. Oh, there they are. Great job. All right, and here we are. Most important is to have fun. So those are our introductions. We have our guest specialist, Sally French, with us. We have a featured specialist, Jesca Gamuchirai, and I have an activity for you, which is a drone electrical circuit. I want to give you one more reminder of our writing contest, and then we'll have our closing announcements. So everybody, let's see your reactions for WAI staff. We have Jobli Kandula, she's here. She is our associate editor. And I'm here, Annie Steichleather, manager of youth programs. So anything related to youth, Engage E-Learning, send that my way. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sally. She's a world-renowned drone expert and the founder of the Drone Girl. Sally, tell us all about it.
Hi, well, thank you guys for all letting me spend the evening with you. I am the founder of the Drone Girl, and the Drone Girl is a news, reviews, tips website all about drones. So I have a background in flying drones, but one thing that, I never studied was STEM. I love the idea of getting into a STEM field, but I personally was a writer. And I said, how can I be in a STEM field like aviation when my skill set is writing? I like to be creative. I like to communicate. That's where my passion, that's where my skills are. And I figured I could translate that to the Drone Girl. So I created this new site, but I didn't create it intentionally. In fact, I got into drones back in 2013. I was a student at the University of Missouri, and I was looking for one more credit to graduate. I was a journalism student, and they happened to offer a drone journalism class. And it really was just the only thing that fit into my schedule. I was really interested in aviation, but I'd never flown a plane. I'd never flown a drone before. And I just figured this class sounds like something different. I'll sign up for it. So in that class, we did all sorts of things with drones. We learned how to build our own drone. And at the time, drones were not as easy as these ones that you can see in our picture that are pretty much ready to fly and buy off the shelf. We had to build our own drones. It was a DJI flame wheel kit. And then we flew the drones, and the drones were not things that easily controlled themselves. Now the drones that you fly today have things like altitude hold, and even you can pre-program waypoints. These were hardly what you would consider drones because you had a controller and you had to control it yourself, and you had to really pay attention to that altitude because if you weren't controlling it correctly, the drone would just drop out of the sky. We flew over things like a prairie fire to show visually, what that fire looked like, how big it was, how close it was to the highway. And at the time, we were studying how journalists can use drones to incorporate them into their storytelling. If you watch the news, you probably will see those live cameras of a big fire, something like that. And it's typically shot on a camera that's just inside of a helicopter. Now, helicopter pilots are expensive. You have to pay for the pilot, you have to pay to get into the helicopter, have to know how to fly a helicopter. But 33, I think, percent of you said you already know how to fly a drone. And so I'm guessing many more of you have flown a drone versus a helicopter. So the barrier to entry is just so much more accessible. So anyway, the class finished. I graduated from the University of Missouri, and I said, I really want to continue this. So I bought my own drone. It was a DJI Phantom, which they don't make anymore. And I started just flying on my own. I flew just in my nearby town. I flew over the beach. I flew, through the parks, and I just documented my flights. I wanted to create a blog to show where I was actually flying. And what happened is that people sent in questions. They would say, where can I legally fly? What drones do you recommend? I have this puffy battery. What do I do? And I started realizing that I would get the same questions many times. And rather than just email back one person, I figured, what's a way to reach many people at once? Just like you guys are in this webinar and I can talk to so many people at one time, a blog was a really great way for me to just send out an answer. And when someone emailed me a question, I could say, just read this blog post. And from there, I worked at a different job, but I realized that there was so much interest in drones that I could make this a full-time thing. So that's what prompted me to really go dive in to the Drone Girl. And now today, every single day, I write a new blog post. And with that, I'm, often covering news. So a big piece of news that came out today is that Wing, which is the drone delivery arm affiliated with Google, just launched a new, bigger delivery drone. They're making big progress on their efforts to have drone delivery be something real and not just this dream that people talk about. So I'll report on things like that. I'll do reviews. So DJI, which is the biggest drone maker, today actually just released a new map editing software. So people who are using drones for aerial photogrammetry to make 3D maps and models have now better software that they can actually edit those maps. So I'll do a review of that software. And so now I have a new piece of content coming out every day. I've since grown that I have a team, and people write for me and I pay them. Is pretty wild to imagine that this grew into my own small business. And so, my message for you guys is, for one, just because you want to work in drones or aviation, you don't necessarily need to be in math or science. Those are great careers, and it's certainly important to value those and take those classes. But there's some of us who are better writers and we're better communicators. And you can still participate in tech, even if that's the case. And one thing that I've found in the tech community is a lot of people who are technical aren't actually the best communicators. They have this really great idea, but they can't really explain why it's a great idea. So if you have communication skills, often that's really critical in moving tech and moving aviation forward. I especially remember in the early years of drones, a lot of people would ask me questions like, is this drone spying on me? Like, what are you doing? And they were really hesitant about drones. Luckily, it's been about 10 years since we saw the big consumer drones. And so people have realized, that's actually not so much the case, that drones' primary use case is to just spy on your neighbors. But it took good communicators to share the message about drones, that drones are doing good, valuable things. So I think I'm going to ask you later what you're interested in about drones, but I'll give you a preview is that drones do so many useful things for the world. So I mentioned drone delivery already. but drones can do other things like help with mapping. So if you're someone who's got a construction site and you want to see everything on the ground, a drone is a really good way to get that aerial view of everything. You can also use drones with cameras that aren't necessarily a visual camera, but you could do something like what's called an NDVI camera. And if you're flying that camera over, let's say, farm fields, you can understand the crop health. So that camera won't just pick up the visuals, but it'll show you things like, are these plants dehydrated? Do these plants have pests on them? And that can be a really good indicator to know, we should water these ones, or maybe they're overwatered. We can save water and not water these ones. A lot of farmers will just put pesticides on all of their crops because they don't want pests on their crops, but you don't necessarily want to put pesticides on crops that don't need them. And so, with a drone flying over a field, then you can see just this area has pests, and that makes it possible that you only have to put pesticides on that specific area and not necessarily impact the other crops. Other great drone use cases include things like search and rescue. So there's so many stories of even people who are, 15 years old, and there's a story of someone lost in the nearby woods, and you can fly a drone over that and much more easily find, that lost hiker, someone down in a ravine who you wouldn't necessarily see on the trail or would be just difficult to get to as a human. With a drone, you can easily fly over and see that person. Of course, you could deliver items to them as well. So a delivery drone could bring that person water until they're able to get to better safety. So there are just so many great use cases of drones. And what's really important is to have communicators, which could be you sharing those stories, then propelling the industry forward. What's been cool is with my job in the industry, I've been able to do so many awesome things as well. So, in me writing about drones, I've gotten to go experience what drones actually do. One of the coolest things I did is I went to the Arctic Circle because there was a group that was trying to show that one of the best places to fly drones is the Arctic Circle. There's no trees around, there's no one to worry about crashing into or hitting because there's not a lot in the Arctic Circle. And so I was able to go there and demonstrate how to fly a drone there. That's one of the many awesome things that I've gotten to do out of this career. And my other message then for you is there's no singular career path. A lot of people just think, I'm going to go become an airline pilot, and all day I'm just going to fly planes, which is great. And that's an awesome career if that's something that you're interested in. But then there's a lot of people who say, I don't want to do that standard career path. I don't want to do the same thing every day. I want to come up with something new and forge this path on my own. And what's cool about so many aspects of aviation, but especially the drone industry, being such a new industry, is that you can really forge your own career path, that you don't necessarily need to follow this predetermined route and do the same thing every day. You can create your own business. And honestly, the best boss is you being your own boss. So I think for now, I'll open it up to questions. I know we have some time, and I know so many of you have flown drones before. So if you have any questions for me, I think you can either raise your hand or post in the chat maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question for you back on your Arctic Circle. So how did drones perform differently in different weather?
That's a great question. And I'm sure you see this with all aspects of aviation, but they do perform differently in different weather. So, higher altitudes make the drone less efficient because basically the propellers have less molecules in the air to latch onto. And because of that, they have to actually work harder to spin. So, in turn, that reduces the drone's battery life. And with drones, today we see your standard consumer drone, like this one in the picture,
Mhm.
has a battery life of, between 20 and 30 minutes. That what you're watching is me flying a Mavic drone. And that's actually in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. And I'm not sure exactly, but somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. But when you're flying in the Arctic, you should basically account for, let's say, 10 minutes. And that's really critical. The other thing to watch out for is whether your drone relies on GPS or not. And so drones today primarily have GPS that makes it really easy to fly. There's return to home features where, quite frankly, if you don't want to fly the drone anymore, you can press a button and have it return to home to you. But in the Arctic, there is likely not a GPS signal, so you do have to manually fly, which is a lot more difficult. I think it's akin to if you have your driver's license driving an automatic versus a manual transmission. You can definitely do it, but you would need to learn and practice flying that manual transmission.
Awesome. Excellent. We have another question. Do you need a license to fly a drone?
That is such a good question. And you do. Under FAA Part 107, you need a license to fly commercially. You don't need a license to fly as a hobbyist. So if you're just flying in your local park for fun, you don't need a license. But if you want to start your business, then you will need to get what's called a Part 107 license. So there's tons of business opportunities that you could probably do right now. If you know a local real estate agent, you could take photos of properties. So actually this photo here on the left, my left at least, is a photo of a house. And this is a great way to show off a property. So someone interested in combine can see, oh, I've got this pool, I have these trees that surround it. So to take a photo like that, you would need to have a license. The good news is that unlike getting your driver's license, where you have to go to the DMV and you have to actually show you can drive a car, the Part 107 test is only a written test. You do need to be 16 years old to take the test. If you're not 16 yet, you can start studying now. And then the day you turn 16, just like you might go take your driver's license test, you can also take your drone test to become a certified drone pilot.
Excellent. Awesome. We have another question. What is the best drone to fly if you're a beginner?
Ooh, well, so this is a good question. Is so many of the drones out on the market today are really easy to fly and they're really beginner friendly. So this drone that I'm holding here is a Mavic drone made by DJI. It's about $1,000 to $1,500, which when you figure how much an airplane or a helicopter costs, or even a nice camera, this is actually relatively cheap or at least affordable. But here's the thing is even though this drone is so easy to fly, I actually recommend that people start by practicing on a toy drone. So you can just go into your toy store, go on, a site like Amazon or Target, and you can buy a drone for less than $50. My caveat is these drones are really difficult to fly. And because of that, I actually recommend it because it makes you a better pilot. When I talked about being in the Arctic and having to fly in manual mode, it's basically akin to flying one of these toy drones that are really difficult to fly. That I would actually recommend just starting on the cheap drone, and it's going to be a more stressful flying experience, but it's going to make you a better pilot.
Are these examples of some?
Exactly. Part you timed this so well is so the one on the right where I'm wearing the striped shirt, that's a toy drone. And so that drone costs less than $50. You could ask for it hopefully for your birthday and Christmas and someone would give it to you. It's difficult to fly. If it does have a camera, it's going to be really, really low quality. But the drone on the left, where I have the side ponytail, that one is the Mavic 3 drone. And this is something that actually basically flies itself. It's got the return to home features. You can pre-program waypoints. And someone even asked, how do you fly? That's a good question. So some have controllers where it's almost like a video game system. There's a left stick and a right stick, and the left stick controls, typically it'll be the up and down, the height of the drone, and then the right stick will control the plane of the drone. So whether it goes forward, back, side, or left. And so with something like the Mavic, then that's going to be something that you could fly that way, or you could pre-program waypoints ahead of time. Other types of ways you could fly is, if you see this photo here where I have these goggles in my head, that's called FPV, or first person view flying. So typically you would hold a controller and you would just look out at the drone and see where it's going and control it from there. With first person view, you actually put on the drone goggles, and it's like you're sitting in the cockpit. Is you actually see what the drone is seeing rather than physically seeing it with your eyes. You kind of basically see, if the drone had eyeballs, those would be yours, and then you can control it that way.
Very nice. We have another question from Savannah. How many pounds does a typical drone weigh?
Ooh, well, it really depends. In general, you want a lighter drone. So just like any sort of aircraft, where, they charge you extra for shipping because that's more expensive to fly, or they charge you extra to check bags. You want the drone to be as light as possible because that makes it less, or that makes it more efficient. So in the case of an aircraft, you would need to use less gasoline. In the case of a drone, you don't need to use as much battery life. And even I mentioned, a drone has a battery life of about 25 minutes in most cases. So battery life is really, really critical. So you want the drone to be as light as possible. Typically, you'll see most drones to be, around 500 grams. And that said, there are plenty of bigger drones. Someone asked earlier about, do you need a license to fly? And that actually, what I referenced, only captures drones that weigh less than 55 pounds. So if you were to fly a drone that's bigger than 55 pounds, and that's none of those that you've seen in this picture, you would need a completely separate sort of license to do that. And that would be something like a drone that's intended to actually carry passengers, which we don't really see yet. But yeah, most drones are like less than 5 pounds. And even some of those really light drones, those toy drones, they weigh less than 250 grams.
Wow, excellent. So we have two more questions, and this will be the last one, but I'm going to combine them. So
Okay.
one question from Audrey is, how do you fly the drones with the first person headset? And then the other question is, how much does the first person cost?
Ooh, that's a good question. So with the first person view headset, you're still using the same controller. So that's where it basically looks like any kind of video game controller you would see. The left stick controls the up and down, and the right stick controls the direction, side to side or front and back. It's just a little bit of a different experience when you fly the first person view. Some people prefer to see the drone out in the sky, and then they just say, I want the drone to go to the right, so I move the right stick. But some people prefer to have that first person view. Some people think it's easier to fly that way. Some people think it's harder. It's actually critical to fly that way when you're talking about drones flying beyond your sight lines.
Right.
So today, most people, when you think about, flying in a park, it's going to stay in your sight line. But when you think about these applications, like even a drone flying in the wilderness, looking for someone, you might be flying between trees, something like that, and suddenly the drone's out of your eyesight. So flying first person view would be absolutely critical. Similarly, with something like package delivery, you probably don't need a drone to help you deliver packages that close by. So if the drone is really flying outside of your eyesight, you'll need that first person view. As far as the cost, you can buy these drones for quite a range. So companies like DJI, that's the biggest consumer drone maker there is. They sell first-person view drones for about $1,000. The one where I was actually wearing the FPV goggles, that was more oriented as like a toy type thing. So that one was about $300. But even you'll look at something like these micro drones, and many of them have first-person view goggles, and you might be able to find one for $100 or $200.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sally. You want to stay for our poll?
I love it. I'm desperate to know the answers. So the poll question, what is your favorite type of drone? So there's micro drones, we'll call those any under 250 grams. A quadcopter is most of the ones you saw in my pictures are 4 propellers. But then there's also tricopters are 3 propellers, or hexacopters are 6. You might want a hexacopter because that's actually just a bonus safety feature. A drone needs at least 3 to fly, but if it's a quadcopter style, it needs 4. What's nice about a hexcopter is in the event one of the propellers breaks or something like that, or the motor stops working, then that 6 provides what's called redundancy, makes it
Oh.
safer. You might also choose a fixed wing rotor. So fixed wing is like a plane. Or if you can't decide, fixed wing hybrid VTOL, that stands for vertical takeoff. So that one takes off like a helicopter, but then it transforms into more of that plane style.
Ooh.
Or you could also have single rotor. So tell me your favorites.
I see a few are in, but we can still participate in the poll. Oh, here, we're coming. Oh, a few more people. Let's see.
I'll add most delivery drones are fixed wing hybrid VTOLs, if that sways anyone's opinion. Micro drones tend to be some of the best racing drones, if that sways your
Ooh,
opinion.
excellent. All right, I'll leave one more minute for you all to answer. So far, 25% chose the quadcopter. 50% chose the hexacopter. I think they like
Okay.
that safety
I
feature.
was selling you guys on the safety. I love it. I love your safety mindset. That's so good for aviation.
Oh, that just went up to 60%.
Oh, I'm selling it. I'm selling it. I'm giving you bias for the hexcopter.
And the fixed wing hybrid VTOL is 20%. Excellent.
These are the ones who like drone delivery, which I also like. That's a good pick.
Yeah, very good pick. I'm going to share the results so everyone can see.
Ooh, fun.
And now it's time we have a featured specialist who made a video for us. And Sally, you're welcome to stay. Or I heard that you have 3 things that you're working on. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I have a bunch of projects in the works. One of them involves the software I told you about, the DJI Terra software. So I need to edit that. And then I actually have a cool piece in the works next week on my site about how to take panoramic photos with the drone. So
Oh,
if any of you are interested in using drones for artistic photography, which is an awesome use case, if you love art, if you love pretty photos, a drone with a panoramic use case is something that you might consider. So I have to go work on that. And then something else exciting happening in the drone industry that I need to unpack is, if anyone has been to Disneyland, they are leaning into drone shows. Now, Disneyland in California doesn't have them, but Disneyland in Paris has some really cool drone light shows, and they just launched a new one this month. So I need to dig into that, and you can watch that on my site, thedronegirl.com, next week.
awesome. I'm super excited. Thanks for sharing. And thank you so much for being our specialist. Uh,
Thanks for having me. Reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. You can follow me on Instagram at the Drone Girl, or you could send me an email, sally@thedronegirl.com. And I would love to follow up on email if you have any more questions. You already had so many good ones, but you might have more.
oh, thank you so much. Yeah, our junior members will definitely check in with you.
I love it. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sally. All right, everybody. We have a featured specialist, Jesca Manica. She is a drone expert and surveillance specialist, and she is a Drones in STEM youth instructor. So it's about 2 a.m. her time. She made us this awesome video, and we can hear her story.
Greetings everyone, I'm Jesca Gamuchirai, a 24-year-old professionally unmanned aerial vehicle pilot, youth instructor, hailing from Zimbabwe with over 5 years of experience in the unmanned industry. I've had the privilege of guiding and managing diverse classes of students across Africa, including Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Zimbabwe. We're going to be learning about drones. What are drones? Drones are small or medium-sized unmanned aerial vehicles. They're usually unique in that they can drive remotely and autonomously. They capture and maintaining a controlled, sustained level flight. The drone system combines of robotics with aeronautics. They can be powered by an electric jet or combustion motor. They also have very modern equipment, GPS, radar control, infrared, and high resolution cameras. How do drones work? Drones are much more like other modes of air transport, such as helicopters and airplanes. The engine is turned on, it starts up, and the propellers rotate to enable flight. Then the pilot uses the remote control to direct the flight of the ground. Many drones have the option to set course automatically. This is possible thanks to GPS incorporation, which is adjusted to reach a given destination. The route is recorded by a camera, and the pilot can see the image of their command position. Most drones usually have 4 propellers, though there are mods with 3, 6, and even 8. The propellers are usually double bladed and to keep the vehicle stable in the air. 2 propellers rotate in one direction while the other goes the opposite direction. Every drone has a central flight controller which works to maintain stability. This device also measures the strength and direction of the magnetic field and works like a compass. The controller receives the information on the drone's location through GPS. It then sends information to electronic speed controller, which lets the motor use the revolutions needed to make the flight as safe and stable as possible. How can drones be used? Unmanned aerial vehicles can have multiple use, ranging from commercial purposes to civil works and infrastructure inspections and recreational use. Some possible use of drones include security and surveillance, search and rescue, medical delivery, package delivery, surveying, drone racing, drone soccer, disaster management, monitoring traffic, weather measurements, and observations of firefighting, irrigation system monitoring, harvest monitoring, crop spraying, military defense of the airspace, and also to distinguish objects from people and the search for bombs or weapons, border surveillance, animal tracking for research purposes, and so much more use cases that drones are used for. Drone regulations in each country in the world. For example, in Zimbabwe, with altitude of the flight must be 120 meters. flying within 8 km perimeter around an airport, controlled airspace. So you need to check out your regulations before you fly a drone. Also, to operate your drone, you need to register and be certified, maybe from the FAA. Yes. Also, fun facts about drones. In the United States, it's already possible to make purchases online and enjoy home delivery of 2.3 kg packages within 30 minutes, thanks to drones. Lastly, let me briefly tell you a day in my life as a drone pilot in security and surveillance. Usually the day starts in the morning. I begin the day by revealing the flight schedules and any specific surveillance task or security operations planned for the day. We go to the fields where we'll be operating. A tip: when you're going to where you'll be operating all the fields, make sure you're wearing your safety gear, such as safety shoes, wetsuit, helmet, safety goggles, your reflective jacket or vests, and carry plenty of water. Also, then after that, I perform my pre-flight checks on the drone. I ensure that all systems are functioning properly and that the necessary equipment, cameras, sensors, etc. is in place. I review the weather conditions and any flight restriction that may impact the day's operations. Then during the day, I carry out planned surveillance missions, which may involve monitoring specific areas or activities for security purposes, conducting surveillance patrols around the perimeter of sensitive sites or location, keeping an eye out for any unusual or unauthorized activity. Also, might do assist in emergency response situations and aerial support and imaging. After completing my flights, usually take 6 hours of flight time a day, I review the collected data and footage of any important findings or security concerns. This might involve analyzing images and video footage to identify potential security threats. I maintain documentation and log all flights, observations, and any incident encountered during the day. Then end of the day, I conclude the day by ensuring that the drones are properly maintained, there are no faults, they're not damaged, and I charge them and I make sure they are ready for the next day's operation. Then we do a debrief with other drone pilots to discuss any observations or incidents from the day's operations. Overall, the role of a drone pilot and a security and surveillance company involves a mix of flight operations, data analysis, collaboration, and ensuring the security and safety of the monitored areas. I've heard the incredible opportunity to inspire over 5,000 young aviation and STEM enthusiasts with an impressive 90% of being young girls. I am honored to be a multi-scholarship international recipient for Women in Aviation International, winning 3 prestigious scholarships in the Boeing Career Enhancement Scholarship, the Bonita Jane Austen Scholarship, and the Yukiko STEM Memorial Scholarship. These scholarships have not only shaped my journey, but have allowed me to live my passion every day, making dreams come true. To aspiring aviators, my advice is simple. Let your passion be your ultimator. guiding you to new heights of creativity and innovation. Design the future of flight. Shape the skies with your vision, and always remember the sky isn't the limit, it's your starting point. A heartfelt shout out to Women in Aviation International for being a beacon of support on this incredible journey.
All right, can we see some reactions for Jesca? She made an amazing video for us. I know that I learned a whole bunch about video surveillance and drones. And that brings us time to start our activity. So we are going to be making a simple loop drone circuit. An electrical circuit is a network consisting of a closed loop giving a return path for the current. So as you can see in this drawing, this is the loop. So this is basically what we are going to be making. The red wire carries the positive voltage, and in my example, I'll have a switch. But in the materials, the drone box that I gave you has a switch built in. And then the black wire is a negative voltage. And in this situation where we're using batteries, it's a DC circuit, it acts as a ground. So here are materials, you can get them together. This battery box actually has a switch in it, so you don't have to do the switch step. And here's our time-lapse video. start making it. Let me know if you have any questions or you want me to slow down. But basically our first step is we're going to get that battery. And like I said, mine has a switch that I've already attached, and yours has a switch that should be built in. So then we're going to get our wire, and you really just want kind of an arm's length. So you don't have to have a ruler, but you know, a ruler may help. You basically want 2 feet or 2 rulers length of the wire, and you can cut that really easily with scissors. So your next step is to go ahead and expose the wire. So this is the plastic coating, and it basically keeps the electrical current inside. It's so that we don't get electrocuted. But if you expose the wire, expose the plastic, that allows us to make a connection. So it's really easy to expose it. They actually have a tool which is called it's a stripping tool, and it does it for you so that you don't accidentally cut the wire. But in this situation, I didn't want to give you all more materials to buy just for this. So I'll show you how you can do it with scissors. There we go. So with that, you just use your scissors and really gently, you know, you don't want to squeeze too hard, just gently squeeze and then just roll that plastic over the scissors and then push this way. And that basically cuts just the plastic, and then you take that off. And so that's how you expose the wire. So what we will do is twist these together just like that. So you want to go ahead and expose both ends of the black and both ends of the red. For time purposes, I have done that already. And remember, we'll post this on YouTube so you can watch it later. So it's pretty simple, color coded, right? We don't want to put a red with a black. We want to put a red with a red, and we'll put the black with the black. So basically, you just twist these two together. Just like that. And for you, you would twist the red and the black together. I have this switch, which will help me turn the drone on and off. So I'm going to put that red wire on the connection on the switch. And then I'm just going to twist it. Basically, what's important when you twist this is you just want contact. It's okay if some of it's, you know, overlapping here, but you just need the contact between the two places. So now for safety, because we don't want to touch that, that's where we use our electrical tape. So we'll take a piece of electrical tape. You really don't need a big piece. You just want a piece that can wrap around. So about a really small rectangle. And that goes here, enough to cover the ends. And what I think is easiest is just rolling it onto itself. You do not have to have both colors of the electrical tape. I just did it so that we really understand that the red is our positive, the black is the negative voltage. So I'll also tape this here so it's secure. Here's my red tape. And this is pretty simple. This is, you know, we see this in a lot of items, a lot of electrical items. So if you accidentally cut a wire, you can basically do this process to put it back together. Some simple maintenance. So this applies to all sorts of fields in aviation. All right, so now I have my connections to the battery. I'm going to now connect these ends to the drone motor. So here's my drone motor. And again, I removed the plastic. I exposed the wires so that I can twist them. So the black will go with the black. Twist that, and the red is going to go with the red. Be patient with yourself. These are really tiny little connections, so just take your time. All right. Now again, we want to tape that. We want to make sure it's nice and secure. So this time I'll go ahead and tape the red first. Just a tiny little piece, about the size of your thumbnail. And wrap it and roll it. And the black. Okay, so now my whole loop is basically closed. So when I showed you that first picture of the circuit, that's my loop. And I have closed the loop, and I'll show you that when I zoom out the camera. Sometimes you have to kind of squeeze the tape. There we go. Another thing that you can use is heat shrink. Heat shrink is this like little plastic tube that you can put over the two wires. Then you use a hair dryer and it heats up and it shrinks and secures the wire. It works a little bit better than the tape. And I definitely recommend it if you're really interested in electrical circuits using the heat shrink, because it really works a lot better. So here we go. So now we have that whole loop. So remember in the photo I discussed, you know, you have your black, it's all connected. So here's that loop. And then on this side is the red, and it's all connected. You'll see when we get done why we have the wires so long. You don't necessarily have to have them so long, but it really works in this situation. All right, so I'm going to work now with this. And I have my foam sheet right here. So we're gonna flip it over and we're gonna we're gonna trace the tape. And that's what's gonna allow us to make that little stand that the drone sits in. If anyone wants an example, oh, it flew away. No, here it is. This is what we are going to be making, this little drone stand here. So we'll go ahead and trace this. And the foam that I linked in our materials has all sorts of different colors. I chose our Aviation for Girls colors, of course. But you can cut out a circle, you could cut out a triangle, you could cut out a rectangle, a star, a heart, really anything you want. You can really get creative and crafty here. And again, we're going to fold this in half and just mark 3 little lines for you to cut. They don't have to be perfect. We're basically making a hole in the center of that circle. So you want to just cut part way. You don't want to cut all the way through. And then flip it over and just check it. So I found that I needed to do a little bit more cutting there. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to peel back that sticky only for this part. Here we go. And this is going to stick to our drone motor. This part, it also takes a little bit of patience. All right, and just bend that back. Now we're going to take that motor and we're going to put it right in the middle and then just push the stickies next to it. So that motor is really tiny. You may not have all the tabs touching it, but just try and center it so that they get stuck to it. Perfect. All right, so now we want to cover that motor, and that's also going to extra stick those little tabs. So we just use a scrap right here and basically make a little mark. Okay, I know the motor is sticks out about that much. Looks good. And then you can use a ruler or you can just guess it. There we go. So we'll trim that, remove the sticky paper. And that goes around our drone motor. And you want it to overlap those tabs. That way it really gets all stuck in place. Uh-oh, got some. This paper is, this foam is very, very sticky, so it works really well. And picks up things that we don't want. Here we go. All right, so trim the excess and ta-da! Basically, all we do now is add our propeller on our legs. So here's our propeller. It's ready to go. In the kit on the materials, you'll notice there's an R and an L on the propellers. You want to do the right propeller for this particular one motor project. I have a picture after this of how to do the other propellers. So now we're going to use our straws. And there's a couple of ways that you can attach the little legs. But I like the bendable straws because it's really, really fun. But you can also attach them a different way, and I'll show you both. First, I'm going to do our bendable straws. So basically, I'm just going to cut this in half, right about there. And it really doesn't matter how long or short they are. You just want to make sure that they're all really close to the same. So here. And the important part is you want to make sure this section is the same. So I'm going to line this up here. You could also try using just 3. I have found that 4 works really well. And there's 4. So they're pretty close. And then I can trim this right here. I love how they fly away. Next, you're just going to bend them. And that's what's awesome about the bendy straws is it's super easy to bend them and they hold their shape. All right, so I'll also show you if you don't have a bendy straw, you could do a straight leg. So just cut a little leg here. And then you just make 3 cuts on the straw about the same length. And fold that down, and that creates a tab. That will stick to your sticky foam. If you don't have a bendable straw, it'll act the same. So it'll stick right like that, and it'll give that landing surface, that landing leg. With this, I would suggest really making sure that the fold and this section are the same size when you make it, and you may only want 3 for this one. I like this method because I think it looks really cool. Once you have your bend in, you want to straighten this out, and we are going to go a little over, but we're super close, and we're going to remove our sticky paper. There we go. And then you just stick that right onto your drone and flatten it out. Two, 3, 4. Okay, now your drone is ready to go. So here's our moment of truth. We're gonna add some batteries. All right, make sure your plus and minus, make sure your switch is off. We'll find out really quickly if our switch isn't off. It's off. And ta-da! There it goes. So I'll tell you real quick before we leave with this. It has P factor, and that's the thrust, making it want to go this way. So as you experiment with it, I suggest when you launch it in an open space so you can see what happens. What I have for you, and you can find it on the Aviation for Girls app, we have a longer circuit right here. So the kit includes 4 propellers, and this is how you arrange it. It's the same concept of connecting the wires. So for anyone advanced, you want to go forth and design your own little drone and have it launched, this is the way. Before we go, I'm going to skip the poll, but I wanted to remind everybody that we have our writing contest. That is due February 1st. Jesca just told us all about a day in her life as a drone surveillance pilot. So I'm sure you could absolutely write something about that. And if you want to connect or find out some other people to check in with, let us know. We'll see you at our Aviation for Girls Connect news, and in March, we have airport designs and communications. I hope you have an awesome day.